There were only 4 people on the entire earth: Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. Then Cain killed his brother, and without any explanation, Genesis says this: Cain made love to his wife. Wait, his wife? There were only 4 named people so far? Where did this extra person come from? If you've ever read through Genesis, this is the verse that makes you stop, because it doesn't add up, and that one question leads to even bigger ones. After killing Abel, Cain cried out, "Whoever finds me will kill me." But in a world of 4 people, who exactly was he afraid of? Today, we're going to dig into the questions Genesis leaves unanswered. Who was Cain's wife? After Cain killed Abel, God banished him, sent him east of Eden to a land called Nod. And then Genesis 4:17 says this, completely out of nowhere: Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. No explanation, no introduction. We don't know who she is, where she came from, or when they got married. At this point in the story, the only woman mentioned in Scripture is Eve. So who was Cain's wife? The most widely accepted explanation is that Cain married one of his sisters, because Adam and Eve didn't just have Cain and Abel. Genesis 5:4 tells us. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. The Bible only records the names of a few, but Adam and Eve likely had many daughters whose names were never written down. Now, that sounds shocking by today's standards, but here's something important. God didn't actually prohibit marriage between close relatives until much later. It wasn't until Leviticus 18:6 that he said, "No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations." That command came centuries after Cain's time. In the earliest days of humanity, the genetic diversity was different, and there simply was no other option. The Bible never tells us who Cain's wife was. It just tells us she existed. Who were the people Cain feared? But there's something even stranger than the mystery of Cain's wife. When God announced Cain's punishment, Cain said this: "Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." In a world of 4 people, who was he so afraid of? This is where Genesis 5:4 becomes a crucial clue. The Bible only named a few people, but by the time Cain was banished, there were likely already many siblings, and their descendants spread across the land. The people Cain feared may have been exactly that: the brothers and sisters of Abel, the other children of Adam, people who had every reason to want revenge. And that's why God stepped in. Genesis 4:15. The Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. This mark wasn't a punishment. It was protection, a sign placed on Cain by God himself, a warning to anyone who saw him to stay back. The most uncomfortable truth: Cain is the world's first murderer. He killed his own brother out of jealousy and rage. If there's anyone in Scripture who deserved to be abandoned, it was him. And yet, God didn't walk away. Instead, in Genesis 4:15, God placed a mark of protection on Cain. And why would God do that? God didn't ignore what Cain did. The judgment was real. The consequences were real. But even in the middle of that judgment, God did not let go. The world's first murderer still had the hand of God over him. That is the most uncomfortable and most comforting truth in this story. God's protection wasn't reserved for the good people. Even the man who turned away and committed the worst possible act, God's hand was still there. Maybe you feel like you've gone too far. Maybe you feel like it's too late to come back. Cain's story says otherwise. If God didn't give up on the world's first murderer, he hasn't given up on you either. Genesis doesn't give us all the answers, but in the spaces it leaves blank, something becomes visible. Noah got drunk after the flood. Abraham lied about his wife twice. Jacob deceived his own father to steal a blessing. Every person God chose in Genesis was deeply flawed. God wasn't looking for perfect people, and He doesn't give up on imperfect ones. If you've been wondering where the Garden of Eden actually was, or whether there's real evidence of Noah's Ark, those videos are already on the channel. If today's video spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden questions inside Genesis, subscribe. The next story is waiting.